So let's just get started. You know what? Let's just get started. We're back. Asians Read is here. It is here to stay. This is, I'm gonna say, season two. I tweeted it, so it's gonna be, it's a thing. This is season two of Asians Read. Our first season was a 13 2-hour episodes of us reading the AD&D Oriental Adventures Handbook. And when we were done, we put it out to a vote. We said, what do you want to read? We said, is it going to be the third edition Oriental Adventures Handbook? Is it going to be Kindred of the East? Is it going to be Mystic China? And that one was bad. Or is it going to be L5R? And it didn't even specify what edition of L5R.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 52 or 54% of the votes, and I think 1,000 people voted, were
Way more
for
than
L5R. And everybody wanted L5R. So instead of doing Kindred of the East, like many people wanted, who were very vocal about it, the responses, we're doing L5R. We're doing L5R because I think it's one of those games that a lot of people are very curious about. They're like, oh, it doesn't look racist like Oriental Adventures. It doesn't have a wonton font. And a lot of people like it. You're not playing as foreigners entering Asia. You're playing as Asian characters. So what could possibly go wrong? Now, I think, before we really got started on the stream, Steve, you said that this is going to be a way more nuanced series. Because I think the Orientalist issues that are inside, this game, or any issues, if there are, won't be as egregious as, say, the paper of folding, or listing chopsticks as a weapon in Oriental Adventures, or having the border of never-ending rice be a magical item, or like having commoners automatically be proficient in Iaido.
Yeah.
Or sailing or something stupid like Oriental Adventures. So this is going to be a little bit more nuanced. And in fact, in anticipation of that, Steve and I actually broke our rule. We broke our rule from season one of this series, and we actually read ahead. And we took notes. And we found two amazing guests for this. Now, we got two guests whose experiences, I think, really complement each other and complement us. So if you look at our stream, right below me on the overlay, Monty, do you want to introduce yourself and why you're here? You actually approached me and you were like, hey, do you need a guest?
Yeah.
You volunteered
hi,
for this.
Okay. Yeah, it's my fault. I volunteered. Hi, I'm Monty. He, him pronouns. So I am a writer and copy editor for tabletop role-playing games. I've been in the industry 5 or 6 years. I've completely lost track because time has no meaning these days.
Absolutely.
I have worked on was copy editor for John Wick Presents 7th Sea. I've copy edited some stuff for Magpie Games for Mark. I am also or was, because I'm not entirely sure how the department has fallen out, is I was a writer for Fantasy Flight. So I have written stuff for the Star Wars role-playing game. I've written stuff for the Android tie-in role-playing game, and I have actually written some stuff for this edition of Legend of Five Rings.
But not in this book that we're looking at right now.
Not in this book. I've written stuff for Emerald Empires, Path of Waves, and I think it has been announced, the Celestial Realms.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And one of the things we wanted to bring up before this even started was you are currently under NDA.
Right. So yeah, I'm definitely not here to talk about like inside baseball or to like call out people or anything. That these are people I've worked with. These are people I've met. No, I believe everyone is trying to write the best game possible. But I'm here mostly to. I'm really interested to see what everyone else's take is, but also to, if there's room, talk about like my experience trying to understand the lore and the world in this game and what it's trying to do and how it's presenting itself.
Yeah, and I think, introducing you as the first guest is a really good first step, because we don't want these to be like aggressive dunkings. We also want these to be constructive. And like, you're right, a lot of people, who still work in the industry. This is a really big one because this is a current game. A lot of people who still work in the industry have worked on this, like including yourself. And we don't want to, jeopardize, your standing with the company. But also we don't want you to get into any legal trouble. So you said earlier that if I'm just kind of like, if I look like I'm staring off, it means because I'm trying to formulate a response that won't get me in trouble. So we're totally not going to lean on you to do any of the, criticism if there is. But I think one of the things that's important is that like L5R is very much based on its world. And Steve and I know nothing about its world.
That's not true because you and I both read Oriental Adventures 3.5.
Okay, I was going to say we did read Oriental Adventures 3.5. So we know a little bit about Rokugan.
Yes.
But I really don't know enough to say, if somebody approached me and was like, hey, do you want to write for this? I would say no, because I know nothing about this world. I know so little about this world that the introduction actually confused me because I wasn't sure what they were talking about. So that being said, our second guest, underneath Steve on our overlay, Emma, why don't you introduce yourself? Because you are not in the tabletop gaming community.
I am not. I know absolutely nothing about L5R, other than I know it uses some things from Japanese archaeology. And that is the only time it ever came up in my life, was I was looking for pop culture references to the time period that I work on, which is the Jomon period.
And you've talked about the Jomon on this stream before.
I can imagine you have, since it's also something you did. But yeah, so I'm an archaeologist. I use a lot of pop culture to teach, just because I think it is really fascinating how things that I'm familiar with from an academic sense get used for a wider audience, and then how these things feed back on each other, people's perceptions of the past, and then how popular perception then comes into academic and official presentation. Yeah. I don't know.
No, I think that's awesome. Like you and I have, you've spent a significant amount of time like living in Japan, learning about your heritage. You speak Japanese.
Well, let's not get carried away.
Better than most of us.
Yeah.
You and I have traveled around Asia together.
Yep. And I've also spent my whole life being so half Asian, so mixed race, and having to negotiate what people see in me and what they think that means. And then also thinking that I'm somehow the one who can answer all of their questions about Japan.
Yep. Yeah, that's a vibe.
Yeah. Immediately after they tell me I don't look Japanese, then they have little questions about Japanese culture and things they don't understand. So cool.
So we have like a bunch of very varied experiences at the table here. We have a lot of like very interesting insights. And so I want to preface the start of this stream, the start of this read, with two statements. One, the first thing is that we're not here to tell you whether or not you should or shouldn't play L5R. We're here to, read it live, give you our impression and our reaction, and maybe provide you with some knowledge that can help you, make your table a more ethical and representative space. This series, Asians Read, started off as just Steve and I are going to sit down on a Friday night and read Oriental Adventures. And then it kind of turned into this big thing. And now there are people who are coming to Asians Represent as a brand and not knowing our podcast, not knowing our D&D show. And they're here because they know about Asians Read every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So we took some time to reflect on what we want this show to be. And we want this show to be an examination of the ways we see, think, and talk about Asian people and cultures through the lens of tabletop games. And so let's get started with L5R. We're going to get started with the 5th edition. Now, I will say right off the bat, I have the PDF in front of me, but I also have 2 other PDFs in front of me. And Monty, you might be able to tell me a bit more about this character when they come up. But Kachiko is a character from the so-called Scorpion clan, right?
Right.
But the Scorpion clan, my first introduction to the Scorpion clan and the world of L5R in general, like Steve said, was the 3rd edition Oriental Adventures Handbook. So I just brought that up on the stream for all of y'all to see who are in the audience. And if you go to page 225 of the 3rd edition Oriental Adventures Handbook, you actually see a Bayushi Deceiver, which is like a prestige class. And she looks like your classic dragon lady, that femme fatale, that, you know, the Asian woman who will seduce you and lead the heroes astray, that stereotype that we all really, really dislike. And we covered this in that special we did where we examined the art of this book. And then during that exact same stream, we actually went and looked at the current edition of L5R and how they've changed sort of representation in this Scorpion clan. Now, if you continue looking at L5R content and you look at, you know, 2nd edition L5R materials, you see something like this. So I've brought up Blood Speakers. So Blood Speakers is one of the books that Steve and I considered reading on stream. But we didn't know enough about L5R to really do this one justice, and it made more sense to do a core book. But Blood Speakers is this sort of exoticized, fetishized, evil Asian book. This is an older book. And now we're back at 5th edition L5R, and things are a little bit different. Honestly, I think the art in L5R is beautiful. Like, regardless of what it is or what it depicts, I think it's great art. It's good tabletop art. It's better than some of the stuff you see in D&D. But let's start reading. So we've gone through the credits. Steve, you actually painstakingly went through the credits.
Actually, I'm gonna pause here. I did the credits of a different L5R book. I did the so we're looking at the core rulebook, right?
Yes.
I was looking at the world book, like the actual history book.
Oh, that's the one that Monty contributed to, Emerald Empire.
Okay, perfect. So like the first 20 pages of it is literally the first 1,000 years of the world. And that's why it took me so long to get through it, because a lot of it just like I couldn't connect with.
Wait, you didn't read? Oh, so you didn't even read the book that we're reading right now?
No, man.
Oh, damn.
So my bad, but that's okay. We'll do it.
I was told that this was a professional outfit. You know?
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah,
that's okay. Hey, y'all, just ban me in chat. It's
Steve,
fine.
You lose 5 honor.
I lose.
Oh, no.
I lose all my honor.
Oh no.
So, Emma, in the AD&D, so the second edition Oriental Adventures Handbook, there are rules for honor, and if you can, and if you can accumulate 95 or higher honor, you would be considered a great hero. And we spent a whole episode trying to figure out how you could game the system in game, and one way would be to squat and actually steal 95 pieces of property, which would then give you enough honor to be a great hero.
And also, show your squat skills.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's great for squatting? Cargo shorts. But anyways. Now,
and for putting stolen things in.
But you lose honor if you steal things. Now, when I was looking through the credits, you know, I saw most of the Asian names were in the art department in this book. That I could see. And again, one of the things we always want to bring up is that you might not have a name that looks Asian, but you might be Asian. But of the Asian presenting names that we saw here, most of them were in the interior art and in general, the graphic design department. So a lot of the design was actually, from our understanding, not done by Asian folks. But let's start reading. We have our table of contents, which, you know, there are some things in here that we're going to eventually talk about. Honor is very big in this game, as is sort of like strife and death. But I want to skip over this because I want us to actually get into the meat of it. Now, what we usually do is I'll start reading, and then y'all just stop me when we hit something that you know might need some answering. Now, I do want to ask, I had to look this up. Monty, who is Doji Hotaru? Because I know that this character, I looked them up, and they are a champion of the Crane clan. But I don't understand why they're starting with this person, if this is a book meant to introduce someone to the world.
So I do want to be clear. I'm actually not an expert in the lore.
That's okay.
Especially since I've gone through so many iterations. Wow, see, I can't remember now.
So so Hotaru and Kachiko are supposed to be lovers,
right?
Right. I think from different clans. Thinking like a Juliet and Juliet sort of thing going on right here. But I looked into it. So Doji Hotaru was no actress, but she was the one dissembling now. Since the beginning of time, Lord Moon has chased Lady Sun around the world, said Lady Kachiko, as she swept her fan in an arc overhead. One day, he caught her, and as her light faded, the curtain fell on the age of the ancient races. Kachiko closed her fan slowly in a false eclipse. So mysterious. Over the course of countless seasons, Lady Sun gave birth to 9 children. Hida, Doji, Togashi, Kodo, Shiba, Bayushi, Fulung, and Hante. So go ahead, Emma.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Lady Sun is supposed to be Amaterasu, right?
it's Amaterasu, and
Totally.
the moon is Tsukiyomi. And do you know the real reason why Amaterasu hid?
I don't. Well, oh wait, no. Didn't Tsukiyomi like kill someone? Like
He killed the goddess of food.
So
Yeah.
this is interesting because I read the wrong book. I actually know the first 1,000 years of history, including including why she hid ish.
Hmm.
So in the fiction, one of the children, Hante, is basically so the Lord Moon gets so jealous of the children that he decides he's going to eat them.
It's very
And-
Greco-Roman.
very.
Yes, it is. I know exactly where they're pulling that from.
Yeah.
Amaterasu is very afraid and basically poisons his wine, his sake, sorry, so that every time he eats a child, he gets a little more poisoned. And by the time he's about to eat his 9th child, Hante, she replaces him with a rock dressed in Hante's clothes, eats the rock, then falls asleep. She then takes him aside, teaches her, it might be a her, so it wasn't very clear in the book, how to like fight with swords. Amaterasu gives her a sword of like righteousness, more or less. She then goes, challenges her father, cuts open his belly, and all 8 children fall out. And they got into the world, and then they become deities who like walk around the world, known as kami. Maybe I got it wrong. Y'all in chat, I'm sure you'll correct me.
So
But that's
okay. So okay, well we'll get into kami later and Shintoism much later, because I think if what you, and I generally trust what you say, Steve, and if what you read is true, and they call it the gods kami, I think we'll have to talk about Shintoism, literally in the next paragraph. But Emma, like, I wanted to bring this up because, like, Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi and this whole myth, like, what is actually the story?
Yeah. Well, the one that I know is recorded, I think in the Kojiki or Nihon Shoki, but it's really that they're siblings. So they're both, they're the son and the daughter of the creators of the Japanese islands. So Izanami and Izanagi. So I don't even know if Amaterasu is attributed to having a bunch of children.
She's attributed to having 8 children, is what I could find from my research.
Okay. But none of the major ones. So all of the major ones are born of Izanami and Izanagi. We don't have to talk about them. But yeah, the whole idea behind Amaterasu hiding from the world and the sun disappearing was that Tsukiyomi decided the goddess of food was disgusting. And he was very much about etiquette. and anything dirty or that he didn't think was proper etiquette, he essentially just wanted to kill, which is also not proper etiquette, but gods are complicated.
Gods are complicated. They break the rules when they want to.
Yeah. And so the way that the goddess of food used to produce food is by vomiting it up. And he found that repulsive. So he killed her. And then Amaterasu was so angry with him that she just retreated from the world and refused to see him ever again.
And so he's constantly trying to find her and chase her. And that's the cycle of day and night.
Yep, more or less. But also, there's another story about how they got her out of hiding before that happened. But I don't know if that's really relevant here. But what I reacted to in that is, why do we have all of these Japanese sounding names?
And a Chinese sounding one?
And then Fulan.
Can I tell you why I think that is?
Yes.
Go for it.
Of these children, one of them will become the evil person and will become basically the head of all darkness and evil of the world. Would you like to guess which child that is?
It's Fulong according to the L5R wiki. Sorry
to rip that band-aid off. But yes, the one child whose name is different, they will become like the basically villain.
Wonderful.
Great. Sure, okay.
That's an interesting look. It's one of the things I noticed about this is that L5R projects contemporary Japanese like stereotypes and norms into the past, into this fantasy world. In that, like, oh, Japan and China, they never got along. Therefore, this one Chinese person must be evil. And I'd be like, I think that is a safe assumption. And I know there are going to be in-lore reasons, but if you're going to have a goddess in Amaterasu have all of these children, why have one have a Chinese name? And yes, China and Japan had a lot of contact, right?
Totally.
And when we talk about Buddhism and we talk about, Bushido, we're going to invariably talk about like Confucianism and how when Confucianism came to Japan in like the 6th century, the Neo-Confucianism that kind of was born in Japan combined with warrior ethics to make what would later be called Bushido and would be later popularized in the West as Bushido in like the early 20th century. But like we'll have to even like get to the Bushido section because we have to get through this really long bit here.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
that Chinese name caught me.
It's
But
your
my
radio.
question-
Sorry, go ahead. Go
Go ahead, Emma.
My question is, would people who don't speak or know any East Asian languages, would they pick up on that name difference? Especially when it's presented in this long list of just names coming off.
I didn't. And that's mostly because when I get a long list of names like that, I just forget them.
You don't read, yeah.
I don't read them. I skip over this kind of stuff. That's just like a user experience thing.
Yeah, I picked on it. I
Fair.
picked it up right away, because I was reading them all out. And I was like, "Oh yeah, this sounds Japanese. I wonder what these actually mean." And then Fulong, I was like, "Wait, hold up, that's Chinese as fuck."
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I kind of stopped there, and I literally on the PDF, I just circled and wrote Chinese ?
Valid.
But because if you look at the beginner box for this edition of L5R, on the back of the beginner box, there's actually a Shaolin monk. And it's just, they're just there. And I know that there are like Chinese presenting cultures within Rokugan or factions. I don't even want to say cultures in Rokugan because everything that they say in this book is pretty much blanket. Like it's like monocultural in that everybody's samurai, everybody loves Bushido, and it's all about honor here. Just the way, I've read the first couple pages. But let's keep going. Hotaru... go ahead, Monty.
Well, I was going to say something, but I am in that, like, starting off in the space trying to figure out what I want to say. So I'll say my experience is that I did have the same, when I was researching to do the writing I was going to do, I did run into the name. And I don't think this version of Legend of Five Rings has a Chinese people equivalent at all. I think previous ones did, and they were, I think, like the small barbarian like tribe. I think. I mean, I might be misspeaking. I'm sure I've angered a lot of L5R fans now by saying that, but I believe in this version, I don't think there is an equivalent, because I did, because I was kind of searching around for that. I might be wrong. Like I said, I'm not as familiar with the core book, but I'm more familiar with the Emerald Empire's part. So.
I'm once again going to the great. Oh Lord, why did I look that up?
What did you look up?
I went to the Great L5R wiki, and there are. Oh, that's something to talk about. The Yobanjin, and I know some in chat people are talking about it, and then one member of our chat is just screaming "Dragon" over and over again. It doesn't mean anything to me, so we'll hopefully we'll find out what this mysterious Eastern dragon is. At least they don't call them Oriental dragons. Hotaru kept her face still and hands politely folded over her lap at the mention of the 9th Kami, the founder of the Imperial House. Whatever it was the Scorpion clan was plotting concerning the Emperor, it would surely not benefit her clan, the Crane. Lord Moon knew that any children whose veins carried both elements of sun and moon would grow to be greater than he, and so, despite the protests of Lady Sun, he swallowed the children one by one. Oh, this is what you were talking about, Steve.
Sweet, now we get to see how wrong I was. Let's keep going.
You did not deserve to wield Shukoju. And I looked that one up, and that is the ancestral sword of the Crane clan. But is that something else in mythology? Shukujo.
Shukujo.
Is that
no, I don't know.
It sounds like a dope drink though. If it was like, yeah, we're gonna get some Shukujo, I'd be like, dope. Like, let's do that.
What you know? Amaterasu has like a mirror and like a sword. What are do those have names?
Well, I don't remember, but it's the three symbols of the like Imperial line and divinity is the sword, the mirror, and the jewel. So like Magatama. And you'll see those comma shapes appear all over the place.
Sweet.
Yep.
You do not deserve to wield Shukujo. The clan cannot afford a weak champion. You must prove yourself a worthy heir first. The Lord Satsume may have been far away from Doji Palace. Her father's voice filled her head as if he stood by Hotaru's side. There's that like parental overlord already. I will prove myself, father, of course. Discerning the nature of the Scorpion's scheme from Kachiko, one of the most infamous manipulators of the Scorpion clan, would be nigh impossible, but Hotaru had no other choice but to try, even if it meant betraying Kachiko's trust. Shall I continue? Came the Scorpion's velvet voice. Do we need to read all of this? I'm sorry.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
This is kind of reading like general, just like fan fiction. Like they're gonna smooch.
I think there are L5R. There's L5R fiction though out there, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They're like several novels, what have you. This reads like if you are super into L5R, you might really enjoy this. But if you're new to L5R and you're reading this, you're probably gonna feel like how I think some of us feel, where it's like, all right, let's
keep going. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt because my notes kind of ended at "You do not deserve to wield Shukujo." And then I thought, do I need to continue reading this? Because, like, honestly, one of the things that's kind of turned me away from L5R is that you really need to know L5R. You've got to understand the world. You kind of have to know that there's this political story going on. And, I mean, this is literally the first page of real text in the book, and I'm already lost as somebody who's new to this. But if you go to the next page, because we'll scroll to the next page, we have Kachiko, who is in the red with the mask on. And then we have Hotaru, who is with the white hair. Now, I wanted to bring this up because, well, I have never seen a mask like that in feudal Japan.
It's a dope cosplay mask.
It's a dope cosplay mask. I mean, if you're going to be a superhero. But it's also the same mask that the Bayushi Deceiver has in the 3rd edition Oriental Adventures Handbook. I'm really curious what you folks think of this art. I think like the clothes seem a lot better than the way they've been shown in other editions of Oriental Adventures, but that mask, I really don't know if that mask is a Japanese thing.
Is there a reason the character's wearing a mask?
From what I understand of the lore, that's just like a very traditional clan mask.
Yeah, it's for the Scorpions.
Basically, the Scorpion clan wears these masks.
All right.
It's like Scorpion symbolism. Is that super big in Japan?
Not really, no.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all.
I had already complained about these masks earlier in like our 3.5 because a mask like that, from like a costume perspective, that is a leather mask that is glued to her face. That sucks for day-to-day wearing. I can wear like a Robin mask, like Robin style, like what do they call them? I forget what they call them, but like Umbrella Academy, those like leather masks. Yeah. I can wear that for several hours at a time, but it's glued to my face. And at the end of the day, when I finally take it off and dissolve the glue, the resin that is holding it to my skin, I just have like red marks all over my skin, and I can't go out anymore because I look stupid. So
domino masks. That's the chat.
Domino masks. That's what they're called. Term. Absolutely.
So I do know a little bit of the lore, I think, of the Scorpion. So this in the previous iterations, I don't know if all of them, in the previous iterations at L5R, the Scorpions were kind of the antagonists. They're like the kind of almost like the evil clan.
Yes.
It's like the masking, I think is also another, what is it, metaphor or tell of them not, being villainous too. Mm-hmm. They're also, I think they're the spies, right? They're the spies.
Yeah, they're like deceivers.
Right.
In the 3rd edition Oriental Handbook, or Oriental Adventures Handbook, it says, behind their ever-present masks, the members of the Scorpion clan fill a distasteful but necessary role within the Empire. They are the keepers of secrets, walkers in shadows, assassins and spies. They care little for honor, but hold up loyalty as the preeminent virtue of the clan. Loyalty to the clan and loyalty to the Empire. Loyalty that makes a Scorpion willing to suffer death or dishonor, to pay any cost. Also, that writing is terrible. Scorpions are usually seen as villains, often even as traitors. But from the Scorpion point of view, their worst deeds have all stemmed from their unswerving sense of loyalty. That was quite a mouthful. It's like, we're not honorable, but we like loyalty, and we're willing to dishonor ourselves because we're so loyal, but we don't care about honor.
Except in one of the previous versions of the game, they perform a coup against the Emperor, becoming even more of the villains. This version, I believe, I think it was discovered to be very unpopular, I think, amongst fans, and so they kind of rolled back that happening. And so in this version, it has not. It has not happened, and I believe it's not supposed to happen. But yeah. So it's basically, they're basically the bad guys.
They're like the bad guys. Okay.
Yeah, or one of the bad guys. There's so many.
So then are like the Cranes supposed to be like one of the more prominent clans? Because I see this like Hotaru character like everywhere on L5R media. It's actually these two. I'm assuming they're like very important characters in the fiction, but they don't really tell us that in this book. And this is like my first criticism with the book, is that it literally doesn't give you any context in the first 2 pages. So let's actually go into this. We know this is important game text because the background for the paper has actually changed. Welcome to role-playing in the Emerald Empire. So I think this is where we can kind of start talking about like Japan. Then this is where we can start talking about people's understandings of what Japan is and what a Japanese person is. And this is, I know Emma knows a lot about this, and I know we've talked a lot about this with our white graduate supervisor. So welcome to role-playing in the Emerald Empire. It is an era of sudden change and upheaval in Rokugan. Mortal schemes, natural calamities, and celestial turmoil alike have disrupted the political, military, and spiritual equilibrium of the land. Long simmering rivalries and fresh betrayals ripple through the courts and on the battlefield. The chrysanthemum throne is beset by threats from without and within, and the honor of the 7 great clans shall be put to the test. Who among the clans will prove strong enough to guide Rokugan in these tumultuous times? Will their names be lifted up beside those of the honored ancestors, or will they fall amongst the ranks of the Empire's most infamous villains? Yeah. So I read that and I was like, okay, what is this supposed to be? And that's kind of what I was trying to do. And Monty, I don't know if you know like the answer to this, but is like what time period in Japan is this supposed to be analogous to? Like, is it supposed to be the Sengoku Jidai? Is it supposed to be the Warring States?
I don't think I could answer that question since I don't have a very good background in Japanese history. It's obvious that this is a very ahistoric setting, right? It is taken kind of, I don't want to say idealized or romanticized because it's a weird thing to say, because it's like, who is it idealized for and who's romanticized for? But it's, oh man, I don't know how to explain this. It is obviously a samurai-dominated setting where that was never true in history, from what I understand, in Japanese history, in any way, from what I understand. And so it's super fictionalized. It's super.
It's romanticized.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't like using romanticized because who's it romanticized for?
That's true.
But I'm gonna stick with that term because I couldn't think of a better one. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It could also just be a familiar representation of Japanese history. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be accurate. It just needs to be familiar enough to ring true. But I would say so far, pretty Sengoku.
Yeah, it's just like a time of military and political strife following the Onin Wars. Okay, in the Legend of the Five Rings role-playing game.
So sorry, I'm gonna
go
jump
ahead,
in.
Steve.
Just to help kind of frame it up, when it comes to like these critical readings, what have you, what I often do to help kind of frame it up is that this is fantasy, like mm-hmm. Clearly this is like fantasy, but because there's a fantasy representing very closely to what are real people, it does represent at a very, very base, almost hidden level, the fantasy of those people. So what I mean to say by that is that by taking this idea of Japan and this idea of fantasy Japan, it represents a tiny, tiny bit of how people fantasize about Japan and Japanese people. So I actually don't disagree with romanticized. I actually think maybe fantasize is a little bit maybe more. It is just a different word meaning kind of the same thing. I think we're on the same page and thinking the same kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But that is how I see it, and that is often how I see how other things in tabletop role-playing games. That's how I frame it up, like fantasy races, and how that's a fantasy about race and things like that.
Oh, speaking of which, Emma actually brought something up to me about Oriental Adventures. The Korobokuro are actually based on something. And then, do you want to talk about that quickly? Because I know that we've talked about that at length in Oriental Adventures. Do you want to provide some context on that? Because I thought they were actually really cool.
Okay, so I don't know anything about them as a class.
They're like a race, and they're like basically evil, hairy halflings.
The Koropokuru or Koropokur, my Ainu pronunciation is non-existent, so apologies for that. But the Koropokuru are essentially little people in Ainu legend and mythology. And I think they predate humans, and they scamper and hide and play tricks and do all sorts of things. But they are a part of northern Japan mythology, and
and like when you told me about them, I kind of looked them up and I was like, oh, they aren't like evil. They're kind of like tricky.
Well, they'll take your shoes and leave you nothing, but they don't hurt anyone or really cause any problems, because really people are the problem.
Yeah. And I think I wanted to bring that up because we were talking about race, but yeah, they're like little tricksters, but they're not these like hairy, conniving, humanoids that the
No.
game actually presents them as.
Well, if you're gonna go hairy, they're probably just referencing Ainu.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can go to episode 18 of the Asians Represent podcast to learn more about the Ainu. So, Steve,
Do you need a break? Do you want me to?
you can
start
go
reading
for
here?
it. Go for it.
Okay. Fresh reading. I haven't read this yet. In the Legend of Five Rings role-playing game, players take on the roles of individual samurai whose honor and loyalty will be put to the test. These samurai serve their lords as warriors, courtiers, priests, or monks, and embark on adventures filled with drama, suspense, humor, romance, and horror. All the while, they must grapple with the human emotions and choose between following their heart's desire or doing what society and the Code of Bushido demands of them. These personal stories of triumph and tragedy will reverberate across the Emerald Empire and shape the very future of Rokugan. The Legend of the Five Rings role-playing game provides players and game masters with the tools. This is like pretty crazy
You
stuff.
could skip that one. What is a role-playing game? And then the whole bit where it tries to sell you the dice.
Yeah.
And I'm not hating on the dice. Like, I'm not hating on the dice, but we could skip that. But one thing they came up with is like, you're all samurai. But then they say that, the samurai were like warriors, courtiers, priests, or monks. And they kind of assign those 4 attributes with the way this is written to the samurai in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's necessarily true. And I kind of looked it up and I thought, okay, well, this is the Sengoku. What would this be? And what would like a monk look like, or a warrior monk look like here? And it would be a Sohei. It would be a warrior monk. But it would be, if this was the Sengoku Jidai, it would be a Sohei who follows a sect of Buddhism and would be at odd with the samurai, shogun, daimyo's authority. Because they have a different religion. And I'm sure, we should probably talk about Shintoism now, because we've mentioned kami. But Shintoism has like a very big effect on everyday life, right, Emma? Because I remember you've told me about this before.
It's not really a religion
Yeah.
in the way that most Westerners would see religion. It really is just daily practice and perspective. And as far as we know, it's just a big old agglomeration of everything that existed before Buddhism appeared and became an official religion in Japanese history.
Right. Yeah, because it's like in the game it says, oh, kami are like these gods, but in like Shintoism, kami are like in everything. They're like phenomena. They're like spirits.
There are multiple types of kami.
Right.
So like Amaterasu and some of those, I think they're called nature or like elemental gods. They're kami. But then ancestors, people, little things and spirits can all be kami as well.
Yep.
So there's a lot, because it's not exactly standardized or unified in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, I think in L5R, kami's clearly being used to describe demigods or deities, right?
Okay.
Like they like a very like Greco-Roman type of idea that, oh yeah, Zeus would be a kami, that kind of idea.
Yeah.
Less so that kami representing something divine or like beyond comprehension and that kind of stuff.
So if you go to the world of Rokugan, there was one thing that like really caught my eye, and I'm gonna read this, and I think
You're just waiting.
I'm just because it like it's the same thing with the Fulung. When this thing caught me, I was like, oh, okay. The Emerald Lands, or Rokugan, in the tongue of its people. Okay, first of all, does Rokugan mean anything?
I think it's trying to say Ryokugan, which is like a green rock or an emerald. But
Okay.
RYO, like you can hear me struggling to say it with my Japanese training. Ryokugan is hard to say. So they just simplified it to Rokugan.
Rokugan. Okay, cool.
And when I first saw that, I was like, Roku usually means 6. So I was like, what, 6 rocks? What's going on here? And then
6 rocks, but there are more than 6 clans.
And it's called the 5 rings. What's happening?
Well, the five rings, we're going to get into that. Well,
in Asian cultures, right? So
yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's supposed to be like emerald or greenstone.
Okay. Are emeralds important in Japanese culture?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, because I was like,
greenstone usually refers to
jade.
like jade and serpentine and some of those like green stones.
I guess they can't call it the Jade Lands. Well, they could have.
But that would be confusing.
And I also think a lot of people might be like, Jade, that's a Chinese thing. I'm looking for
Exactly.
Japanese.
Yeah. Except right here, I see the Great Wall.
Yep,
so...
that's what I was. I was reading this and I was like, okay, the Emerald Lands, or Rokugan, note to self, find out what that means from Emma, in the tongue of its people, comprise a vast, majestic countryside that stretches 900 miles from the pine valleys and snow-capped peaks of the Great Wall of the North Mountains at one end to the austere Carpenter Wall, standing vigil along the country's desolate southern border. They put the Great Wall of China in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Japan doesn't have any walls.
Also, like, I would have thought that Rokugan would be just an island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Did you want to bring up the map?
There is a map.
What page
And
is it
maybe
on?
maybe now's a great time to bring up that map. Daniel, the world book that I erroneously read has it on like page like 5-ish.
So I found the map in this book. It's on page. That's a pretty dope piece of art, though. I will say that.
Oh, it's the same piece of art.
Okay, it's the same piece of art.
Yep.
So this is not an island.
No, it is not.
I wonder why they didn't make it an island. I wonder if they had a reason for making it a landmass like this, like China.
I mean, if I was a game designer, it makes sense to keep it as like a landmass because I can sell more stuff later on.
You can expand.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Oh, like, so the Great Wall of the North Mountains is literally just northern mountains. It's not an actual Great Wall like in China.
Okay.
It's the southern wall that's an actual wall.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there it is. It's the southern, but it's a wood wall. Is what they said. It's not made of stone. Okay.
Still a wall.
It's still a wall, and they protect them from the Shadowlands, which I'm assuming is just full of oni and yokai and things like that. They have the islands of Silk and Spice.
Yeah, I saw those islands, and I was like, "What are you going for there?"
I find that interesting because it's, and I don't want to project anything onto the creative team, and I don't want to, and everybody's like mostly crab. I don't want to project anything onto the creative team, or onto like John Wick and the original crew who did L5R, or even if I don't even know if this map is the same as the original map of Rokugan. But one of the things that you notice here is like everything that is Japanese is huge and big compared to anything that's really coded as Chinese. And that's this like Silk and Spice. Well, Spice is very South Asia. But it's interesting that they took this and they said, you know what, this Fantasy Japan is not going to be a series of volcanic islands. It's going to be a continental landmass. And I mean, I think from a thematic point of view, that really confuses me because I think an island is nice and self-contained. But Steve, you're right, they want to sell books.
But then it's also maybe too much like Japan. This is where I find these things interesting is when they decide to deviate from their source material.
Yes.
So it's like very obvious that they're pulling from Japanese history, Japanese mythology and religions, and then every once in a while they don't. So like, why? Like, not even to like troll or be a problem, just like, I kind of want to know, like, why?
Yeah. I mean, that's a part of what this series is. It's like, what are their intentions? And I wish that we could, talk to people about it, but then that will invariably come off as like combative and confrontational.
Sure.
I mean, yeah.
I had the exact same tension where Amaterasu is listed by name, right? And that is like a part of Japanese culture. But Lord Moon is given a fantasy name, not the actual Japanese name that would like be the other counterpart there.
I think maybe it's for pronunciation reasons.
Maybe it's for pronunciation reasons. Maybe it's because in this, they're lovers, not brother and sister, and someone had the foresight to be like, that's going to cause too much tension.
Oh, they were both, though.
I would love to read a role-playing game that had that and was like, oh, yeah, we have this problem back in like our like divine days. we haven't really dealt with that yet. Cool. Put me in that RPG. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
But I think what we're seeing here is just like the traditional kind of not understanding what impacts your words might have. I don't think John Wick or anyone on the creative team just like looked at Yellow Peril and was like, yeah, I want to code Yellow Peril into a game. We're not going to see that, and I'm not worried about that. But what I think we are going to look out for are things like, just kind of glossing over culturally significant things.
Yeah. I don't think this is going to be I don't think this is like an egregiously Orientalist work. I don't think this is a game that screams Yellow Peril. Like, I think it's very apparent that they put in, effort to try to make this better than the previous iterations of L5R. I mean, when you just compare what we've seen so far and what we've read so far, and you just look at the cover of Bloodspeakers, you already know that it's better. Or you look at, anything in the 3.5 D&D like Oriental Adventures book, which is set in Rokugan. Like, everything is significantly better here. There's still nipple in the Oriental Adventures handbook. So, I mean, this is already a better product, right? It's already a better product. So we've already seen that there is some Chinese influence here. Beyond the wall lies the Shadowlands, a blighted land tainted by the influence of hell itself, and dangerous for even the most legendary heroes to step foot within. At its widest point, Rokugan measures 600 miles from the Sea of the Sun Goddess to the east, to the burning sands in the west. See, Rokugan is like, and I say this as somebody who makes fantasy maps for fun because I'm a giant nerd. I can see you just like stifling that laugh, but it's okay. Just, we've known each other for so long.
We know who we are.
I know who we are. Like, it's like, oh, I don't really want to draw anything beyond this point. I'll put mountains there so I don't have to worry about it.
What's over there? Burning sand.
Sand. You can't go there. It's the sand. Get away. Right? But it's also like, that's China. Right? You think about like northern China, that Lus Plateau, and then the mountains of northern China. And then, oh wait, there's the desert to the west of China that kind of separates it from the rest of the world. Like, geographically, this is just very much China. And what is China in this world, or what are other Asian countries in this world, are the islands of Silk and Spice. Just based on that map. And I know that like L5R fans are going to be like, you don't know anything about this game. That's the point. That's the point. We're coming into this as people who have never read L5R before. And we're kind of giving you our first impressions as people who don't know anything about this and aren't necessarily fans. So
it'd be interesting to see if the islands of Spice and Silk actually play a role.
Yeah, apparently like the Crab Clan.
The Mantis Clan.
Mantis Clan?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just gonna look up the Mantis Clan. Thank you for that, Monty.
Would you like me to continue reading?
Yes, go ahead.
Where did you lead off?
I left off at within its borders, bountiful plains ripple gold in the sunlight, and primordial forest hide mysterious spirits and dangerous creatures.
I have no idea what page you're on.
I'm on page 6.
Bottom World of Rokugan.
There you go.
We haven't got past this page yet?
No.
I'm so sorry. I thought we had got past this page. Within its borders, bountiful plains ripple gold in the sunlight, and primordial forests hide mysterious spirits and dangerous creatures. Hot springs straddle mountain ranges and hills laden with precious gems and minerals. Countless rivers, lakes, and streams wend their way toward the ocean, where fish, seaweed, and pearls are netted by divers and fishermen. Crimson torii mark the gateway to sacred spaces, which exist alongside the sprawling cities and huddled hamlets of human civilization.
More Shintoism.
Yeah.
Is the torii like a
torii? Yeah, they mark the borders between the mundane world and the other world and spirit world. Mm-hmm. So most not temples, most shrines that you'll go to, that's torii mark the way.
Oh, those red archways.
Yeah, it's the symbol of Shintoism too. If you ever look it up in the like world religions guides, like the red gates are the symbol for Shinto.
It's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Hold up. Some people are saying in the chat that our audio is stuttering. Streamlabs is not telling me that there is anything wrong with the audio or if we've actually missed frames. But what I'll actually do is, let's see if we can do something here.
Looks like a few people are saying it's okay. So I think we're okay to start moving on here. But I mean, folks in chat, if you find it stuttering, just like throw it in. We'll try to fix that. We'll do it live.
Okay, awesome. Folks are saying that theirs is fine. I just saw a couple in a row and like, oh, interesting. I looked at the Mantis clan. It's a very interesting icon. I want to see what the 5th edition icons are. I guess we're on the next page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So starting at the top of that, we go, each of the 7 great clans presides over a different corner of the empire, protecting the natural harmony of the land and the kami that dwell there. Shrines and temples dot the landscape, marking places of spiritual power and contemplation. Fortifications, large and small, protect roads, bridges, mountain passes, and the domains of great lords. In the shadows of these castles, towns and villages prosper from the efforts of craftspeople and artisans. Beyond the city limits, peasants toil over rice paddies and fields of grain, or hunt and gather the bounty of the forests. To travel the empire on its roads, samurai must obtain special papers and pay a tax toward their upkeep. Merchants' carts and horses are banned from the imperial highways altogether, forcing them to rely on special trade routes to carry goods between cities. Given the size of the empire and the difficulty of journeying, few get to witness the variety of the empire's vistas in one lifetime. Let me just finish this off. Instead, citizens are deeply in tune with the natural cycles in the provinces they call home. The heavens bring 4 seasons of the empire, which are celebrated by festivals and arts. In the spring, the delicate fragrance of cherry blossoms wafts from misty gardens. Summer heralds rains and oppressive heat, slowly giving way to autumn's brilliant scarlet leaves, shrill cicada cries, and typhoons. Winter buries the lands in deep snow, closing mountain passes and driving citizenry to the warmth and comfort of the hearth.
What do you think, Steve?
First of all, thank you for describing the seasons. Sorry, it's like me just like dunking on it, but cool that we describe the seasons. I don't know why you would include that from like a writing perspective. Most readers, I think, could like appreciate kind of seasons. Maybe it gives you a little bit of flavor, like, oh, in autumn we have the cicadas, but I don't know. It gives me a little bit of tension, I feel.
Divisions and meaning for the 4 major seasons are a big deal in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know if that's why it's in there.
Could just be filler.
Could be.
I mean, we did see in Oriental Adventures. They literally had an entire page of text that just said things happen.
Yeah.
And if they're setting a scene, I guess here's what this land looks like.
It's a very flowing style of prose. It's like very different from the AD&D like Oriental Adventures that we read. This one's actually it's a little bit nicer to read. They even put a guide to pronunciation. I don't know if that's true though. Their guide to pronunciation, but at least they did that.
E-U-A-O. If you've ever studied Japanese, you have to do the sound system.
So
they make you just repeat it.
So is this correct?
E-U-A-O. Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
I don't know about the stuff that comes after about emphasis within a word, because I don't know if they're not going for actual Japanese words and names. There's no reason to get that tone, like the 2 tone differences right. But whatever.
I really appreciate them putting in a pronunciation guide, because to me it is a signal from the creators, the designers, to say like, we are trying our best to make this accessible to as many readers as we can. And if I were to give one piece of criticism to it, it is actually a piece from the Unbreakable anthology, where the pronunciation guide in that book says it is okay if you get them wrong. Pronunciation is difficult. It takes a lifetime to learn. However, the creators would really like you to try before you try to just replace the names with other like sounding names. Names are important. The way you pronounce words are important. We would like you to try. It is okay if you mess it up. It's part of being human.
One thing
really
that's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
It's just interesting because there are some studies in pop culture right now, especially within the YouTube uh, viewing videos and non-East Asian people watching things like K-pop and J-pop videos, is there's a lot of sort of gatekeeping and policing of the fan community based on whether or not you can pronounce things properly.
Interesting.
It's really interesting. And so having some statement about that, this is how you say it, but it's okay if you don't do it right, is really interesting from my point of view of studying some of the pop culture stuff. So it's like, try your best, but if you don't get it right, that's cool too. Instead of saying, if you don't get it right, you're not a big enough fan, or you're not paying attention and you don't know what you're talking about.
The interesting thing I've noticed, so I went to the very end of the book on a page 330. There's actually a glossary of terms. And for the most part, they are pretty much like all Japanese terms. But they've included this like pronunciation guide, but then they've also taken terms from other cultures and have put them in the book. So in saying that, they're like, oh, this fu lung also, in terms of pronunciation, needs to adhere to this Rokugan language, even though it's very clearly a pastiche of Chinese. You'll also see that scimitar is also in the glossary here, indicating that the burning sands is supposed to be analogous to like Persia or like Southwest Asia. Which is interesting because that situates this geographically as very much like China.
How did they recommend you say Fulong?
Well, no, I'm just looking at it according to their pronunciation guide. Oh, and that is chapter 2.
Who? Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I'm just looking at chapter 2. I was just scrolling up. And I'm like, that's not a Japanese character. I think
what
that's
are you doing here, though? We're supposed to be going through this page by page, right?
Oh, I didn't expect to be called out. I was scrolling back up. I'm scrolling.
It's now producer Steve.
Wow.
Let's keep going.
Wow.
You've lost all your honor.
I've lost all of my honor.
I'm the daimyo now.
Oh.
I will never be invited back.
I thought you were my friend.
So the next section's on the Code of Bushido. Usually we ask our guests if they would like to read. So Emma, I'm going to extend that out to you. Would you like to?
Or Monty, you've been quiet.
Or Monty, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's kind of hard to see the.
So we're on page 7.
Oh yeah, don't if it's hard to see for you, like I don't mind reading it. I put a lot of thought into this Bushido bit, perhaps more than I should have.
I can give it a shot.
Yeah.
I haven't said much either in the past few minutes, but okay. So it's under Code of Bushido.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
To protect these lands and their way of life, the samurai servants of great lords follow Bushido. This way of the warrior elevates samurai from the rest of society while also chaining them to near unattainable ideals. They must embody righteousness and honor, loyalty and duty, and courtesy and compassion, as well as the courage in face of death. The samurai is expected to uphold these virtues in their every word and deed, even when these ideals conflict with one another. Should I keep going? Or
I kind of want to stop there for a second and just talk about Bushido. And
I think a lot of people have a general idea of what Bushido is, but don't know the history and truth behind it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted to talk about.
I can see you itching over. All right, go.
Oh no! Were you going to talk about Inazo Nitobe's book? So there is a book called Bushido: The Soul of Japan. It was written in the early 20th century, and it is one of the first sort of like very westernized accounts of Bushido written by a Japanese person. And it is from this book that this code of Bushido, those ideals that they talk about here, that kind of originally historically would have stemmed from like Neo-Confucianism and the sort of unnamed warrior ethics of early feudal Japan, and kind of put them into Bushido, this term that became popularized as a way for the West to understand this very traditional Japanese past at a time when Japan was being forced to open up to the West, at a time when Japan was very rapidly modernizing. So these ideals of Bushido come from a very, very modern book.
And it's so even from a historical perspective, our vision of samurai is highly inaccurate because this codification of Bushido and everything else came after the warrior samurai no longer existed for quite a long time. Because samurai during the Tokugawa era, right before the feudal age ended, they were all like philosophers and civil servants. They had to gain reputation by writing things, essentially being scholars and being good clerks and civil servants. No one fought anyone anymore. And there was a real identity crisis and a romanticization of what the warrior used to be. And so all of our vision of samurai comes from this era when they were essentially longing for the past. And then they were all philosophers and writers. That's why this is like the first time we see it written down, because I don't know.
Hey, they're great warriors. It's this.
Except, none of them who wrote this had ever seen battle, and probably their fathers never had either, because it just wasn't done anymore. They weren't allowed to carry swords. Mm-hmm. It was a very different time when that was written.
Somebody in the chat said it's a romanticization of a romanticization.
It really is. And also, actual like Sengoku and earlier samurai, not romantic at all.
No. And like
no,
not at all.
to give you a little more context into like the world building and what have you here. So in Rokugan, Bushido is given by those like 8 children. Okay. So they are actually divinely given to people.
Interesting.
Wait, say that again?
So those 9 children.
Yeah.
One of them is Fulong. He becomes evil. Forget about him for now. Hante becomes the emperor of Rokugan. The other 8 travel around basically uplifting like people by giving them divine inspiration and what have you, basically teaching them, right? One of those teachings is Bushido. So all of the clans are divinely taught Bushido.
Yeah, in the game, Bushido is a literal universal principle. It's like it's infused in the universe. It's not just a human, set of traits or ideals. It's actually literally part of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do something against a code of Bushido, you're kind of doing it against, the laws of the universe in a way.
So it's like I'm a farmer.
And there's like far-reaching ramifications of like writing something like that. One of them being Bushido itself is like very strict in how to like be a person, right? We all know that being human is very complex and you cannot be put into a box. Everyone's human experience is different and unique. But by saying that divinely, this is how to be a human, like this is what the gods said, any person who like violates Bushido, you've kind of coded in a way to justify violence or other like oppression against them. That can be, from a game design perspective, cool. You've clearly listed out who the players should be like having tension with and who they should be trying to defeat in one way or another. But in another, because it is people that we're talking about, this can absolutely be perceived in a way that causes harm, and it can perceive it as a way that certain people should be perceived. It can cause problems. It can cause tension. It's definitely not to like the extent of harm that we saw in other pieces of media, but we see here again like what I would call like that spore of harm.
Yeah, I think the part that I dislike, I don't dislike the fact that they put in Bushido, because it's kind of Bushido has had such a weird influence on perceptions of Japan, because it's kind of this like the foundation for all international perceptions of Japan. Even if you think about like modern day Japanese and rates of suicide in Japan, people who don't understand Japanese culture will say, oh, well, it's like Bushido, it's like honor, it's like loyalty, it's like, well, death. And I mean, that is like a really harmful sort of stereotype to put on an entire nation. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's also one of those words to use if you want me to not be interested anymore. If a Western franchise tries to present something to me and they say Samurai Bushido, I'm like, peace out.
So what would
Not
you
interested.
what would get you interested?
See, that's
And
going to be
I know that's a personal question too.
that is personal because like my interests and my like things that I know about of are different than other people. But I appreciate delving into mythology and using things as inspiration, but I have a hard time with taking historical things and real things and just simplifying, essentializing, or changing the meaning of them.
Mm-hmm.
So here, if they want to use the world, some of the ideas, that's kind of cool to me. But as soon as you say Bushido, which is a real thing with history and connotations, I kind of am wary, and it's probably enough to make me just stay away.
So you think that it wouldn't have been as bad if they perhaps used a completely different word than Bushido, but said that there is some sort of code of ethics?
Yeah,
Might have. Well, the one thing I just don't like is how they make it the foundation of everyone in this idealized Japan.
Yeah, I'm also just tired of having Japan be essentialized as samurai and Bushido and all of these things. So if I ever do go for a franchise about Japan, I want it to be different than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's this illusion of the homogeneity of Japan, both like historically and culturally and ethnically. Right here, it's just like, oh, this is based on like I guarantee you that when people are pitching L5R to others, it's like, oh, it's a fantasy Japan based on the historical period in its history where the samurai were in a period of strife and there was tons of honor and suicide and clans and stuff like that. And hey, go ahead. Sorry.
Several hundred years of Japanese history standing for the entirety of its existence and people today.
That's exactly it. That's the problem. But what is the solution and how can you make this better? And that's something that we always talk about here.
And the hard thing is like, this doesn't have to be a solution to that trend because it could totally just be that's what they're going for, just because everyone else seems to do that too. I guess is the larger problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying that that's the type of thing that makes me less interested.
No, totally. I mean, that's like super important, like to discuss like these feelings of being tired about how Japan is portrayed.
Yeah, I'm tired, but I also don't want to rip on them just because they chose this.
Totally.
Because it's probably what they're interested in. It sells. It is cool. So I get it.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I think. I mean, like, I completely agree with you. I think the only thing that I don't like about this, and like, hey, you could take Bushido because it's familiar to people. You can, draw from this historical period, but take bits from other historical period. You can have these anachronisms, right? Yeah. But the one thing I don't like there's two things I don't like. I mean, the first one we've talked about a lot is how, like, when you close your eyes and you've read the first 7 pages of this book and you try to picture the people of Rokugan, who do you think of? You think of, like, the ethnic majority of Japan. And that's it, right? And the rest of the rich cultural history and the of Japan is not here. And I think that's kind of it's a shame because people don't get to learn about it.
This is unrelated, but for anyone who's actually interested in samurai, there's quite a bit of scholarship on ethnically Korean people who were Japanese samurai.
That's just completely related.
Holy crap.
Wait, let's go down this rabbit hole.
What am I Googling?
What are we Googling?
I'm writing stuff down right now here.
Yeah. Monty's like, I'm not a guest here. I'm just here to do research.
Oh yeah, I'm here to learn.
So there's an entire group of people within Japan even today that are originally from Korea or ethnically Korean. That is like an ongoing thing. But the samurai thing stems from the invasions of the Korean peninsula during samurai times. So this happened a bunch. Japan tried to claim Korea so many times. Mm-hmm. And there's actually a ridiculous dispute over one of the times Japan went in. They took a monument from Korea that was to celebrate the last time Korea kicked Japan out
Right.
of the region. So Japan took that monument that's celebrating them getting kicked out and refused to give it back. And so like that's an ongoing thing. Irrelevant right now. But in some of those times where samurai invaded Korea, a lot of the warriors brought back the children of the people they killed. And so there were a lot of Korean boys, especially, brought to Japan, had their names changed, and they were raised in the ways and within the family of different clans and samurai. So there is actually a fairly well-known diary of a Korean-born samurai who talks about his life and all of these things.
What is it called?
I wish I could remember. If you give me a chance, if you guys keep talking, I will look it up.
So what I want to share there is that Vietnam has a history of kicking Japan out too.
Yeah, everyone does.
Same with China.
So, but my experience through is very different because my parents, like going back to my childhood, if I were to mention Japan, the reaction would actually be silence, just like change the subject kind of thing, and my parents would just kind of like not really care about it. It's almost like an erasure of Japanese and their influence, just kind of like that was like very difficult, very shameful. Yeah. Japan did rule over Japan for like almost a century or so before the French took it over, and then the Vietnamese kicked out both the Japanese and the French. But anyways, we're badasses. But all that said is like that experience of just like being conquered and then rebelling, being conquered again, and trying to like be your identity, I think is a very I feel like that's a common story that a lot of people could resonate with. But by kind of sanitizing Rokugan as basically kind of your pastiche, kind of like you're just Japan, you've lost the ability to tell stories of this amazing, not amazing, very tragic, but also very compelling and very impactful story.
I'd for sure play that game. If there was just like, you're this like Korean samurai, you were kidnapped as a kid and brought up in this culture, like that is so interesting.
I think the story of being displaced.
Monty, if you're gonna write something for L5R in the future, you gotta include this.
Being culturally displaced, I think, is absolutely relevant today. Has always been relevant and will continue to be relevant. I think a lot of people like struggle with their own identity, myself included. And if I could play a game that helps me work through and express myself and a character's identity, and it gives me that like space to do so and explore that, that is a very meaningful game. And those are experiences that I'll probably take on for like my lifetime.
Damn, Steve. I should.
I got really heavy there. I'm sorry.
No, Steve, it's okay.
Let me continue to drink this beverage of a refreshing nature.
Yes, in fact, let's talk about what beverages we're drinking. What are you drinking right now, Steve? Because we never talked about that at the beginning of this stream.
So I switched drinks a couple times during this stream. So I started with a local brew from Railway City. It is a orange creamsicle ale. That was like a very nice way to just kind of like have a dessert. That was my dessert for tonight's dinner. Tonight's dinner was a marinated chicken breast with some like lime juice hoisin sauce. It was great. Some sesame seed oil. I know what I'm doing. What I'm saying. Tons of garlic.
Cooking with Steve.
I moved into like a Muskoka brew, just the craft lager, just like kind of take off the edge there. And now, as we're moving into the evening, I've moved into Flat Nose, which is a Scotch blend. I should stop advertising Flat Nose because it's very cheap at the liquor store right now, and it shouldn't be. It is absolutely a $120 bottle of Scotch blend, sold for like $70 right now. So it's very, very nice. The first sip of it was like drinking liquid smoky bacon. Like that was what I got out of it. And just you probably saw me a little bit. I was just like had my nose like in the glass for like a long time, and there's a reason for that because it just smells like bacon and goodness. And then I have a couple sips and I'm feeling good, and not feeling great about Bushido, but feeling good in general.
Yeah. So Emma, what are you drinking? Because I always do this because we just talked about something really heavy, and I want to make sure that we kind of like lighten things up. What are you drinking?
Fair enough. Well, I'm gonna keep it heavy for 5 seconds.
Go.
So I found the article that I've read about the Korean-born samurai, and it's Wakita Kyube. I can send you anything you want.
Yeah, we'll put
later.
that
Yeah,
in
do you
chat.
want to throw that in the Zoom chat?
So, Wakita Kyube.
What?
There is an article by someone named David G. Nelson that's about the biography of this person and what it meant for 17th century Japan being a samurai, and this thing that samurai used to do when they went into Korea. But what I'm drinking, or was drinking, was Waterloo Dark. I like stouts. So had one of those, and now I've moved on to some Irish whiskey called the Sexton that comes in this badass bottle.
I just finished a bottle of Sexton probably last month. I bought it just because of the bottle.
Me too.
So Emma, you definitely fit in. Monty, are you drinking anything? I'm not drinking any alcohol right now.
I'm drinking water. I needed to be sober for this.
That's fair.
I feel that.
I'm
But
drinking.
also,
Oh, go ahead.
I have my glasses from the Sapporo beer.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because you
So
spent a
they're-
lot of time living in Hokkaido.
Yeah, I also was in Sapporo for 2 months last summer, so I have a lot of, I don't know, Sapporo stuff now. If you go to the brewery, you can buy whatever you want.
Nice.
I love that.
I'm drinking my usual Jiao Bao, my favorite
Oh, yeah.
Chinese drink. It's just a very sugary herbal tea.
Mm.
After
Alright.
my village drinking incident in China, I stopped.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So let's continue. We got a little. Where were we? We
We got happily sidetracked.
we got happily sidetracked
We are
on Korean
talking
samurai.
about
So-
Bushido.
So Emma, with the time we have left over, why don't you go, would you be okay just kind of reading the next paragraph here on page 7, a samurai's reputation under Bushido?
Oh,
No,
boy.
hold on, wait. On page
Wait,
7? Oh, I see.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So, a samurai's reputation for adhering to the code of the Bushido. First of all, it's kind of weird to say code of Bushido because it means the code of the way of the warrior. Anyways, whatever.
Yeah.
Code of the Bushido reflects not only on the individual, but upon the samurai's household, family, and clan. Of course. Should they prove unable to live up to these expectations, only ritualized suicide or seppuku can wash away the stain on their honor. According to the Bushido, there is no room in a samurai's life for anything that would get in the way of these ideals. Love and ambition, pride and greed, even happiness are to be sacrificed for the sake of the Bushido. Yet samurai are still human, made from the mingling of Lady Sun and Lord Moon. Almost said Lady Moon. Order and chaos. The tenets of Bushido would not be ideals to strive toward if they were easy to realize in daily life. Characters in Rokugan are measured by their own faith in and devotion to the code of Bushido through their honor value in bold.
So let me pause there for honor value, and then
Yeah.
let us
There, and I love
take a
how
look at-
Emma, you said it in the most Emma way possible. You were like, honor value.
It's in bold.
Yeah,
In the-
well, in the next column, there's a glory value as well.
Glory value.
Yeah, so we'll see honor and glory and all that good stuff. Just kind of in my research and looking through the gameplay mechanics in L5R for the card game, there's like 3 victory win conditions. One is a military victory of like taking over enough provinces and then you win. 2, there's the honor victory. You gain so much honor that you win. The second is your opponent loses all their honor and they lose.
Like real life.
Like in real
I'm-
life. Okay.
I'm probably missing a lot of nuance there, but from like what I could gather from just like quick skimming of some other rule books and what have you, so what I kind of gathered. So obviously honor is a very integral part of like the Rokugan play cycle.
Mm.
So let's rip that bandit off. Let's talk about a lot of this other shit.
Yeah, I think for first of all, I now cannot unsee Code of the Way of the Warrior.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I can't unsee that now. That's a shirt. That's a shirt right there.
Code of the way of
Code of the Way of the Warrior. Yeah, I can't unsee that. I keep every time you said Code of Bushido, I went, But for me, it's just like I would have no problem with this if they said that, you know, Bushido is just a thing that the military elite follow. Sure. I have no problem with that. But I think when they say that, like, oh yes, so they imply that Bushido is worshipped as a faith. First of all, they say it's a faith. Like, and even though, you know, a lot of people are like, and I've noticed this in the chat too, people are like, oh yeah, Bushido is like analogous to chivalry. I mean, they're very different and rooted in very different religions. First of all, let's talk about
Bushido's very Buddhist.
Very Buddhist. It's got like Confucianism in there, and of course,
you know, you're
like,
supposed to be
Shintoism.
vegetarian.
For Bushido,
Strictly vegetarian. Yep. Minimal lifestyle. You're supposed to live like a monk and do no harm, except for some reason you're a warrior.
Except you're a warrior.
That's in this book actually.
Okay, cool.
They're supposed to be vegetarian, but they have a whole thing. They're not supposed to touch dead things or things that were once dead.
Impurities, yeah.
And there's a whole stuff with that.
See, that's cool.
But they didn't put that here.
Yeah.
Well, this is a summary, right?
But even if it's in the game, I think that's really cool. I like give me opportunities to learn more about Japanese culture. If you're gonna have like this Japanese game, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, again, I go back to Bushido is given divinely, so actually eating meat, it goes against like divine narrative. Other ramifications, sensitive readers would catch that. That's okay. Let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, let's
past that.
Let's be honest. We're over an hour and a half into this stream right now. What are, like, Monty, you could reserve your opinion because I know that you're in a different position. But like Emma, Steve, Daniel, what do you think of this book so far? Like, I know, Emma, you haven't really played a tabletop RPG, and we need to really remedy that.
If you want to see me bumble through something,
I think you'd really like it.
Yeah, maybe.
There's games about cats.
I know, but there's also a lot of rules, and I don't do well with a lot of...
Well, there are some very rules-like games. Games.
Cool.
But like so far, like Steve, having read Oriental Adventures, what do you think of L5R so far?
So I had already expressed this, but I want to express it again that we've done so much better than Oriental Adventures. Like this is miles away from like being that very, very harmful, where basically every single line was a microaggression against me. We're doing a lot better here. I'm enjoying a lot of this, whereas in Oriental Adventures, I enjoyed literally one paragraph out of 100 pages. And one paragraph is generous. What I'm reading here is basically cool. It's clearly Japan. I get that. I'm not from Japanese descent, and I don't really know much Japanese culture, but cool. Maybe this is a learning opportunity. But also, as I'm reading through it, certain things kind of like irk me a little bit. And the most recent example is actually just how they treat suicide, like ritualistic suicide. And as someone who's East Asian, and I read that and I'm like, oh, we've really glorified suicide here. I can't help but stop and think, maybe I should be really critical of what I'm reading here. And maybe the stuff that I think would be really cool to leverage as my learning for Japanese culture, maybe I need to like really pause and think about it. And that really defeats the purpose, right? Like if the value I'm going to get from this is to take my experiences as a human being as Steve and connect it with Japanese experiences and culture. And suddenly the text tells me, hey, there's stuff that you might have to watch out for, but we're not going to tell you what. Then I pause and I lose a lot of that value here. As a game, I'm sure the game is like really fun. I'm sure a lot of the mechanics could be fun, and I could tell like really cool stories and have like those cool like Kurosawa like samurai moments.
But even the Kurosawa, like Akira Kurosawa's like movies. First of all, like Yojimbo is like, we're not talking about a samurai. We're talking about like a completely different time period too, where like samurai and what the warrior in Japan is seen as something completely different than what they are here.
Yeah. So my rating is 7 rice bowls out of 9.
Out of 9? Why 9?
Oh, because 9 children. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's also a lucky number, right?
Like,
yeah. Yeah. Why?
It's supposed to be 8. Oh, well, that's for me.
Yeah.
7 out of 9 rice bowls because there are 9 children. And you're missing 2 because one of them's, I guess, Chinese, and the other one
Chinese
is
and evil.
And evil.
Chinese and evil. But yeah, it's hard with stuff like this because it isn't obvious. And that doesn't necessarily mean this is worse because I think it's fairly well done. But what I'd be interested to know is if there is, like, for further research and reference, like, do players get directed to better explanation and sources for where this came from?
That's not usually a trend in tabletop RPGs.
Because there's this whole thing within the literature about using pop culture to teach, and that, oh, it's all tangential learning. If they're interested enough, people who consume this stuff will go and find the actual resources themselves. They'll learn because they're interested already. But, like, is that happening? Or is this just, like, further perpetuating those ideas of what Japan is and what they stand for, such as honor and seppuku and bushido and all of this?
Yeah.
And also, like, that whole love versus duty thing is, like, the basis of every single samurai romance and shipping franchise there is.
I think for me, like, it's definitely way better than Oriental Adventures.
Yeah.
Well, when you say Oriental Adventures,
yeah, it immediately it immediately is like says it's way better. But, like, I think it's way better than Oriental Adventures. And there are only a couple of things that I really don't like so far. I think the first one is, like, this fetishization of, like, ritual suicide, which I don't like. Mostly because it takes agency away from the people of this world, and it assumes that all people are willing to give their lives for this strange faith that they've put upon what is essentially a code of conduct historically.
Also building on this idea that samurai actually did this all the time.
Yeah.
They
No.
were
No.
Sometimes, yes, there are some famous cases, but, like, every single time you're like, I have dishonored you, let me, like, kill myself or cut off a piece of my body. No.
I have dishonored you. Let me go acquire more property to increase my honor score. The other thing that I don't like... Honor value. Sorry, I have to increase my honor value. And we're going to get... I am very curious, and Monty, don't tell me, but I'm so curious about how one actually acquires honor in this game.
There's a chart. There's a chart for honor, glory. There's a chart for glory, and there's a chart for status.
Excellent.
So there's 3 meters that you're constantly, like, losing, probably.
Do you think, like, people are walking around in the world of Rokugan is like, where's my honor sitting right now? I should probably... Oh, wait, but my glory's a little low. I mean, that is a point I'm actually trying to make. Like, systematizing, like, social status like this. Systematizing honor, systematizing glory, and was it status, you said?
I think it's status.
Well, there's ring value. That's another thing. But I think we'll talk about that on a different stream.
Yeah.
But I think, okay, so the one thing I didn't like was, the fetishization of, like, ritual suicide, which was, like you said, Emma, not a widespread thing. The second thing I really dislike is that, it paints a stereotype that all of these characters, all of these Japanese people are, like, cold, emotionless killers who just care about honor and glory.
Well, yeah, because they've given up on love and individualism.
They've given up on that. I don't understand that. And I mean, that's also playing to stereotypes of Japanese, the contemporary Japanese people. It's the same thing about that model minority myth. That's like, oh, all of these Asian people are really good at math, and they're all studious, and they're all tenacious and hardworking, because they follow Bushido. But, like, those are just the 2 things I don't like so far. But I don't blame that necessarily on the creative team of this game. I blame that on just how the West has grown to understand the East.
And it would be weird to set a samurai world without Bushido.
Exactly.
It would. And I think it would be how you would actually incorporate that into the game, right? And I guess we'll talk about that when we get to the honor section.
Actually, Daniel, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit. Me? I didn't. Yeah. I didn't get too much. Sorry, I said that in a very like happy way. Disagreeing with you does not make me happy. But I would say that I don't get a feel of Rokugan being a cold and like uncaring world from the things we've read today. I get the feel that Rokugan is not a full human experience. I do get that. So
that's kind of what I'm going for.
But there is a lot of room for like compassion and warmth within the Rokugan setting. I will give it that. I think there's some stumbling here. So earlier on, we're talking about like the things a samurai could be, like a priest or a warrior or like a courtesan, or like I dislike that line because I think it put Rokugan people, Asian people, basically in a box. I feel like it could have been like samurai could be artists and poets and warriors and murderers and everything in between.
Yeah,
like,
you could just say that
you could have left it open.
Yeah, you could simply say that like the characters that you play are samurai, a warrior class in the world of Rokugan. They engaged in, martial pursuits, some more, I would say, ethically ambiguous than others, and they also engaged in artistic, pursuits. They were full people.
Yeah.
Rather than, hey, we are these warriors and we have these swords. Look at my katana.
I'm a samurai and a priest, but that's it.
I'm a samurai and I'm a priest, but I'm also a courtesan. I
feel like you have to wink after you say you're a courtesan.
It is really hard to wink if you have a mask glued to your face. Just like,
that's true. You can't wink.
Can imagine.
Just like, don't worry where that comes from. Just like letting you know, if you wear a mask glued to your face, winking like is not great. Not a great experience.
Also, if you're supposed to be like super secretive and you're the Scorpion Clan, wouldn't the masks kind of give you away? I feel that's nitpicking, but
you wear a mask over the mask, so when you're finally like you reveal your devious scheme, you throw off the mask.
Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible. I take off my flesh mask and I reveal my scorpion mask.
Perfect.
Flesh mask.
I thought that's what Steve was going for.
It was not, but you know what? I appreciate the horrible imagery you've given me.
Look, well, we're doing Dungeons and
I thought he was talking about personal experience, and I was about to say you already gave us a detailed description of glues and when you take a mask off afterwards. So, like, you kind of gave yourself away there.
Yeah.
Let's get into the samurai struggle.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's finish on the samurai struggle. Many Rokugani. Okay.
All right. Anyways.
Rokugani. So the people that I don't want to nitpick on that.
Rokugan-nin would make some more sense, but
yeah.
Anyways,
doesn't matter. Many Rokugani plays have been written chronicling the impossible choices facing a samurai as their human feelings, or ninjo, conflict with their obligations to society or giri. Okay. Ninja is feelings. I understand that, right?
Can I ask a question out of like not just knowing it out, seeking to learn? I see a lot of like accents over the letters here, but from the pronunciation guide, there's only really one way to pronounce an O. Is this really necessary in romanization?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's an extension. So sound combinations within Japanese have a standardized length. You don't really give one more time than the other unless there's an extension over the vowel, so it's longer. Okay. So if there wasn't one over the O here, it would be ninjo. But because there's an extension, it's ninjo. And that like seriously changes the meaning of the word.
That's really interesting. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That would have been cool to know if they put that in the guide.
I think they said it changes how you say things, but because these aren't necessarily Japanese words, you don't need a full language lesson.
True.
But like a really good example is like the difference between grandmother and aunt in Japanese, like oba-san, oba-san, like, or I said that the wrong way around, but extending the vowel changes the meaning and how you write it out in Romaji or Roman lettering is with lines.
It actually is mentioned in the pronunciation guide. I just missed the last sentence there.
Okay.
Anyways,
Yeah.
just small sidebar. Daniel, please continue.
Oh yeah, there. No, that's cool. I mean, again, we're not here to shit on this book. We're here to read it and see what we think. And
Experience
it literally, and experience it with people who might be able to provide some more context as to what we're reading. Right? This is not a show that's necessarily about Steve and I teaching everyone about the world of L5R, because A, I don't have the time for that. And B,
you also don't have the background for it.
Don't have the background for it. So this is this is about us just reading this and getting our first impressions as we go page by page, painstakingly. And I say painstakingly more for the last thing we read. Oh my God, this PDF is 338 pages. Sorry.
Yeah, you're going to be here a while.
I'm going to be here for a while. Okay, those things that would get in the way of Bushido are real and meaningful forces in a samurai's life. And it is the rare soul who can resist their call completely. The stories and the drama of the Legend of the Five Rings role-playing game revolve around the tension between these two conflicting forces. One of the fundamental choices a player must make during character creation is to select Ninjo or Giri, the opposing forces of a samurai's inner desire and external demands placed upon them by their lord and by fate. Whether a samurai chooses happiness or duty in a given moment has narrative and mechanical consequences, not only for themselves, but for all of the Emerald Empire. When they serve their lord with distinction, tales of their glories may spread to the corners of the empire, or even be recorded for the ages. A samurai's fame and reputation for service is measured by their glory value. I honestly like that better than what D&D does with alignment. I think it's interesting. I don't see really personally anything wrong with that.
If I was the sensitivity reader on this one, the only thing I might advise the creators on is the idea that it's rare that someone would what do they use here? Like not adhere to Bushido.
Yeah.
I think that is a little too limiting. I think from a sensitivity standpoint and also a general game design standpoint, this is not very conducive to fun gameplay.
Yeah, I think, you know what? I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so Monty, are you kind of up on like what's going on in 5th edition D&D with alignment?
I actually I haven't touched 5th edition D&D at all. I've seen a little bit of discussion on Twitter, so yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. And Emma, I know you don't really follow that, but in D&D, there's like a big thing as part of your character and a part of every creature that you encounter in the world of D&D is your alignment. It's like your literal moral compass. Are you like lawful good? Are you chaotic evil? Are you neutral? And these are all like based on like Christian ideals and ideas of evil and ideas of good and virtues. D&D has really very poorly said like, hey, there are some races in the world of D&D that are inherently evil. And on Twitter, one of the lead designers of D&D has kind of gone on these long Twitter threads basically saying, hey, we're going to take this out. You know how we're going to do that? You just don't have to use that rule. It's like, but this is there. Now, the reason why I disagree with Steve in like thinking that this is limiting is that I think that this is actually a lot more interesting. I think this is a lot more interesting because it's very similar to Robin Laws's dramatic pulls. And that's in Hillfolk. It's another TTRPG. I think that's interesting because your characters now have depth. Your characters have conflicting forces within. Now, I don't know if they necessarily have to be tied to the Emerald Empire as a whole, but I like the idea of characters who are torn between two opposing forces. They don't have to be duty and obligation. They don't have to be honor, glory, loyalty, compassion, love. But I just like the fact that characters and players are prompted to have opposition within themselves. And I think that's interesting.
And it does say because you're human, this isn't automatic or easy. And it's almost like choose your own adventure. Like almost each decision you make accumulates. It's not set the type of person you are.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it is, because I don't know the rules of this game.
We'll find out. We'll definitely
Based on this
find out.
description, though, it makes it sound more like, I don't know if anyone ever played that Sonic game where the decisions you make decide whether you're evil or not, but like, whatever.
Yeah. I have to apologize. I actually
Not me.
read this wrong as I was going through it. What I did was I read it as people are very drawn towards one end of the spectrum. It's hard to resist the call to the other end of the spectrum.
Oh, okay.
It's actually written in a way that's
Oh.
opposite that. So actually, we're on the same page here. I love when there's drama encoded into the game.
Yeah.
Encode
Okay.
drama,
So we didn't
that's
disagree.
amazing. No,
Yeah.
we didn't actually
Yeah.
disagree, but that's okay. I misread it, and that is both on me and potentially a little bit on the writer there. Just it wasn't clear for me. That's all.
The next page is literally the way of the 5 rings. We're gonna go
That's
to
a
that
lot
next. That's a lot. That's a lot to talk about.
It's also a lot of dragons.
A ton of dragons. We'll talk about that next week because we are running out of time. Our great moderator Peter is going to throw everybody's socials into the chat. I will say, like, Emma and Monty, thank you for joining us in this stream, the inaugural episode of season 2 of Asians
Yeah.
Read.
I'd
L5R.
love to come back. It's fun.
Yeah, like, hey, look, if you wanna join us, and Monty, you too, if you wanna join us again, like, by all means, like, please join. Please come back. Let me know. I've thrown all of your socials into the chat. Your socials are also on the screen. If folks are listening to the audio, because we might post the audio on our podcast feed. Monty, you are Monty_Lin. Emma, you are Starchaeologist, but with a AE in archaeologist. Do you folks have anything going on? Anything that you want to share with the audience? Anything you want to promote? Now is the time. If
I'm
not,
an archaeologist. I don't know, man.
hey, look, like,
Uh,
being an archaeologist is super cool to this audience.
It's really cool, especially in northern Japan, where there are ongoing indigenous issues that don't get a lot of play in Western media. So, yeah, I don't know. Just if you're going to look into stuff in Japan and want to know more, start looking into Hokkaido and the north, or into Okinawa in the south. And as we mentioned before, there is a large Korean descent population in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can look at half Asian people like me, because they're all over the place, and that's also a wide topic.
Yeah, I mean, like, ethnic homogeneity in Japan is like one of those things that, like, you constantly
It's
see in
weird.
games. Constantly see it in games. But, like, on this stream, I've brought up the Ainu so many times, and we've talked about Jomon ceramics, because, like, I'll never really, escape
You'll
that.
never get away from it.
I'm never
Yeah.
gonna get away from that. So, like, Emma, you've got, like, I mean, you've got some publications, but I think you need to be at a university or pay a lot of money to get a journal article.
And also I teach courses, but you kind of have to be at the university. So recently made a syllabus for looking at East Asian pop culture in the realm of transnationalism and diaspora, and what more Asian representation in pop culture and media means for East Asian populations outside of the countries that produce these products. So
I'd take that class.
But, like, thank you, but, like, I can't. I'll tweet it maybe.
I would say if that idea really sparks joy in, like, anyone in the audience, nothing stops you from just talking to your friends about what it means to, like, not feel like you belong, and how it affects other, like, aspects of your life. Because I'm gonna throw some words kind of in your mouth, and you can spit them out if you want.
What?
But a lot of scholarship is really about kind of doing the research and connecting it to, like, your own personal experiences, as well as trying to extend it as to how it can affect other people as well. So if you're a viewer and you feel that, this is something that you're passionate about, if you just want to start talking about it, hey, that's step 1. Step 2 could be anything, but it could end in academia, which is totally valid, and it might
Yep.
not, and that's also valid.
And academia has a really bad history of putting words in other people's mouths and trying to interpret something they don't understand. So I've become very attached to these studies of East Asian representations in academia and official publications.
A lot of the chat kind of lit up, Steve, with how you phrased that.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna spit these out, and
I'm gonna put these words in your
and you can spit them back out.
y'all can do what you want. That's fine.
Yeah. But yeah,
Monty, you've written on a couple of L5R books. Which ones are those?
Yeah. Well, I wrote some stuff in Emerald Empires, which is the setting book, which actually
cool.
describes the setting of L5R much better and more in depth. I wrote some stuff for Path of Waves, which is the Ronin book. It's the book where you can play characters that are challenging this very rigid structure, which I personally thought was more interesting. And then I wrote on the Celestial Realms book, which is the religion book. I'm not sure when that's out yet, though. So I know there's a press release, so I think I'm allowed to say that it's out, or will be out.
We're just gonna cut this now.
Yeah.
Sweet, that's awesome. So like 3 books we know are gonna be interesting because you've worked on them. I mean, one of the things that we're all about on like Asians Represent is uplifting Asian creators and the work that they do within the community. So like, cheers to you, Monty, and like Emma. Like, welcome to Asians Represent. I know that like I've talked to you about coming on to the show a couple of times, and we just never made it happen.
I know, yeah, but it's how it goes.
We did it, but we finally did it for this
happens.
one. And like both of you are like, feel free to come back to like help us read L5R in the future, because we do this every single Friday.
I'm even just curious to see where this goes.
Yes, and then that's kind of where I'm at. So that being said, Steve, do you have anything to share?
I have something to share to you, Daniel.
Oh,
so we'll get into this later on, but there was a book in my library that I have buried away, and I just rediscovered as we were doing like pre-readings. And as an archaeologist, you might really enjoy this. This is called The Crest of the Peacock.
Okay.
This is a book purely on the non-European origins of mathematics. Just mathematics.
That's
and
cool.
what I love about that is that there's 2 chapters actually devoted just to China and how China developed its mathematics completely separate to European influences. And you'll see things like how the Chinese developed their own Pythagorean theorem 300 years before Pythagoras is credited with it. And what I most love about this book is that it definitely ties culture to mathematics. And Daniel, I think that's where you and I can really kind of like...
Are you assuming that I like math?
No, I think that's where academics actually collide. Okay. Because culture absolutely defines and influences mathematics and vice versa. We should talk about this like after the stream is over. But
so what we gotta do is find a math game. We'll find a math game, and then we'll talk about culture and mathematics.
Absolutely. Can I give you kind of my like quick spiel
about how mathematics?
So, have you ever heard L'Hopital's rule? He's a French mathematician. Okay, he's a French mathematician. I'm gonna embellish a little bit. He sucks at math. He actually doesn't, but I'm gonna embellish. He sucks at math, but he wants to be good at math. Super wants to be good at math. He's a European guy. He's a French guy, obviously. He hires Bernoulli. Remember Bernoulli from like a lot of his like mathematics? I don't know if you know this, but Bernoulli died of starvation. He just couldn't afford food and he died. L'Hopital bought one of Bernoulli's like theories and named it after himself and gave Bernoulli a bunch of money so he could feed himself. But it wasn't enough and he eventually died.
Oh,
this just sounds like academia.
Yeah, it really does. I'm like, I escaped this.
But
I feel this in my bones.
I share that because Daniel, from our conversations, you've sparked me to like read more of this book so that I can come back to you and be like, Daniel, let me share with you how much I care about math and science and especially astronomy and cosmology.
I mean, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do we'll do some sort of astronomy. You know what would honestly be a really good one is if we do a read through of Coriolis. Because it's technically an RPG that's inspired by 1001 Arabian Nights, but it features a lot of space.
Talk to me about stars. Oh, I love stars.
Let's do that now. a couple of things that we want to share with you folks while we still have you. Steve and I are actually both best-selling authors. Steve, you want to pull that up on stream? We're both narrative designers and editors of a book called Unbreakable. So you can find Unbreakable at unbreakablерpg.com. And if you are a creator, if you're an Asian creator, if you're an illustrator and an editor, if you've got a story to tell and you've never published before, like Steve, this was Steve's first writing credit. Go to unbreakablерpg.com, go all the way down to the bottom of the page, and you will actually find a link, a form to actually apply to be on Volume 2, Volume 3, so on and so forth. So go buy Unbreakable RPG. It is our answer to Oriental Adventures. It is a book that was entirely written and illustrated by Asian creators. So I'm very happy that we're part of that. Asians Represent is also back. Our podcast, Dungeons and Asians, is back on our standard podcast feed. Episode 8 is out. We are actually going to start moving forward. We might actually start live streaming that D&D show. So check that one out. Episode 8 of Dungeons and Asians is out. I'm very excited about that. Steve, do you have anything else going on? I've got one other thing, but
Unbreakable is one thing, and I want to talk to you about math because I know that we don't talk about math enough.
okay.
But Daniel, go ahead. Do your last thing here.
So I have a book that I just released. It's called Denizens of Mountains and Seas. It's a little zine that I've been working on my Patreon, patreon.com/Daniel H. Kwan. It is a collection of monsters statted in the OSR fashion, but compatible with 5e. These monsters aren't from your standard D&D books or your Pathfinder books. I've actually done a lot of research into classical Chinese monsters and Chinese conceptions of the natural world. And so on my Patreon, I've been working on that, and it's been a very fun exercise, and a lot of that is now bleeding into Dungeons and Asians. So if you listened to episode 8 of Dungeons and Asians, we did this whole battle with the Shadow Marquis, and they encountered these beautiful birds that shat acid. And that's from that book.
It's kind of what all birds do.
It's kind of what all birds do. It's true. And again, like a lot of Chinese monsters, and I'm curious to see what they do in Japan, but a lot of Chinese monsters are actually just ways in which Chinese scholars and philosophers understood or rationalized the natural world. There's a snake called the ba snake, and it's so big that it eats elephants. And it digests them for 3 years and then expels them. And some accounts say that it expels them through the scales.
Interesting.
And yeah, there's cool stories, and they're mentioned in little books like the Shanhai Jing and stuff like that. But what's cool is the god of archery, and Emma, I know you know who that is in Chinese mythology. Hou Yi actually was said to have killed one of these, buried its body under a hill, and built a temple dedicated to its spirit. And on an adjacent hill, there were elephant skeletons all over the hill from all the different elephants that this ba snake, this ba shi, had actually killed.
Dope.
Yeah. Right?
So fucking dope.
Yeah.